Hey friends, Dave here at Transfer Express, and today we're talking blank t-shirt terminology. So we're going to cover some of the most common terms and what they mean for apparel decorators just like you. We got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Now, there is a lot of terminology tossed around in the t-shirt industry these days, and it helps to be familiar with them so that you could easily help your customers find exactly what they're looking for and know what to look out for yourself when printing to ensure consistent, predictable results for frustration-free printing, regardless of how you are decorating apparel. Of course, I love my heat press. So let's dive in. If you think we missed one along the way, let us know down in the comments section below. First up on our list of t-shirt terminology is singles. You'll commonly see these listed on t-shirts on any wholesale website. Now, this is the thickness of the yarn or thread that the t-shirt fabric is made of. Similar to, say, thread count in bed sheets. The higher the number here, the finer the thread and the softer the t-shirt. Now, commonly, you'll find most blank t-shirts are between 18 and 30 singles, somewhere in that range, but of course you'll find lower and some styles much higher. Now, high single counts are typical on more premium tees for sure, but even an inexpensive blank style like the Port & Company PC 450 fan favorite tee can rock a soft 30 singles. Bella Canvas 3001s and the next level 3600s that I think are the industry standards are both 32 singles and absolutely awesome tees for printing on. The finer yarn does make finer detail hold a little better and helps keep those prints looking crisp even after being laundered. Now, lower single counts aren't necessarily a bad thing. They're just more of that basic tee feel. You'll find them common on, say, heavyweight tees. Now, kind of related a little bit in terms of the fabric, let's cover a few different types of yarn: ring spun, combed, and carded cotton. Now, carded cotton is going to be the least inexpensive, common on the cheapest tees that you will find wholesale. Think of something like a crochet yarn, right? Carded cotton is essentially just a bundle of cotton fibers in a long strand with, well, some fuzziness to it. Ring spun cotton takes the process a little bit further, in which the fibers are essentially spun together, creating a much finer, smoother, and more durable yarn or thread. Kind of like a little tiny twisted rope knit all together for your t-shirt. Now, combed cotton goes through a similar process with a few extra added steps, which essentially combs the cotton, removing any imperfections and short pieces which create some of that fuzz, aligning all of the fibers to be the same exact direction before being spun into a long yarn. Now, you're gonna notice some combed cotton tees almost have a slight sheen to them and a very, very smooth texture. It's considered the most premium yarn for t-shirts. Next up, let's talk fabric weight. Now, this is essentially the weight of 1 square yard or meter of fabric. Now, it's gonna pretty much let you know how thick the fabric is. Thinner fabric, well, weighs less, and dense, thick fabric weighs more. The fabric weight can help narrow down choices for a t-shirt with lightweights, say in that 3.5 to 4.5 ounce range for something like performance wear, all the way up to the 6 or 7 ounce range for something like a heavyweight cotton tee that we reviewed in this video that we're gonna link right here and down in the description below. Now, thick tees kind of help with the feel of those huge, gigantic prints or solid ink areas when worn. Perfect for things, yep, you guessed it, just like streetwear or promotional tees, or maybe even dimensional printing with something like puff ink. Put puff ink on a lightweight tee, it's gonna be kind of uncomfortable to wear. Now, let's switch over from fabrics to the construction of t-shirts. And we'll look at 2 main body styles here: side-seamed and tubular tees. Now, side-seam tees are essentially constructed from 2 flat pieces of fabric for the front and back of the shirt, joined right down each side. Now, these tees are typically more fashion forward for that more fitted feel. Tubular tees are essentially knit together in a cylinder before the arms and collar are attached, so the fit is a little bit more relaxed and straight. And it's the same whether it's the front of the shirt or the back. Now, related to tubular tees in one way comes the term quarter turn. It essentially just rotates the fabric so the crease that you commonly see with tubular tees, not a seam, appears on the sides of the garment versus the front and down the back. Now, personally, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it's really helpful to have that crease down the middle of a shirt as a little guide for the center line of a tee when you have it on press. But always trust and verify, as sometimes that crease isn't straight or even centered on the garment. Also, on the construction side is our next term, and you're commonly going to hear taping called out, something like shoulder-to-shoulder neck taping. Essentially, this is an extra layer of fabric stitched on the inside of the seam to reinforce the fabric there. Not only does it make the t-shirt more durable around areas of high stress, the shoulder seams, the collar, but it's actually a really nice premium finished touch. It really helps with comfort too. You're gonna notice quite a lot of the tees on the market now do have a taped neck for a softer seam when worn, so that back collar isn't rubbing on the back of your neck when you're wearing the t-shirt. You may also see here mentions of double stitching or double needle hems or seams. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Look closely at any seams on your t-shirts and you're likely to see two parallel stitches on all of those seams, or maybe even collars or hem lines. Almost every popular wholesale t-shirt these days is double stitched on the hems, and that's for added durability. There's a huge argument online for people collecting vintage tees, and it's one of the easiest ways to spot a vintage tee, say pre-1980, is that it will have single stitching instead of that double stitch. But let's shift on over to dyes and the three most popular ways of giving t-shirts their color: traditional or regular dyeing, garment dyeing, and pigment dyeing, all of which play into some factors of consistency of color and how well it stays or fades evenly when you're washing and laundering it. Now, traditional dye is by far the most common way of dyeing fabric. The flat fabric is soaked and dyed to the specific color before the t-shirt is then cut out of it and sewn together. The colors are consistent and accurate from batch to batch and soaked into the fibers of the t-shirt. The colors are rich and wash incredibly well. If not specified otherwise, this is likely how the fabric on the t-shirt you're looking at is colored. It is kind of the industry standard. Now, garment dyed t-shirts are sewn to a finished t-shirt first in like a natural or off-white color, and then they are dyed to the specific color. Now, this gives them a vintage kind of look and feel. Now, with garment dyeing though, there can be some inconsistencies with color, and colors may fade to more of a vintage look a little bit quicker than with traditional dye methods. Now, they could also feel a little vintage when worn from the dyeing process, which is incredibly trendy these days. Think styles like comfort colors for this favorite tee kind of look and feel. Now, pigment dyed tees are similar to garment dye, as they're typically dyed after the shirt is constructed, but the method in which the fabric is processed to bond the color to the fibers is just a little different, with binding agents used instead of just plain water in other dyeing methods. Now, the process here leads to a nice soft vintage color that sometimes looks weathered and uneven, with a very super soft finish and that lived-in vintage feel when worn. Although the colors may tend to fade in the wash if not cared for properly, and the dye may bleed into white inks or if you're printing with high heat. Now, lastly on our list, let's chat everyone's favorite synthetic fabric. It's polyester, right? Known for its strength, durability, low shrinkage, and outstanding stretch, polyester is more prevalent as a blend with cotton than ever before. Not to mention the popular styles of 100% polyester in performance wear and athleisure garments. While being more heat sensitive than organic fabrics, polyester shouldn't be a challenge to print. With low temperature heat transfers, you could confidently decorate polyester garments with ease. We put together a great video detailing some different ways to avoid scorching polyester that we'll link right here. Now, of course, just like with other fabrics, there's a few different variations to keep an eye out for. First, recycled polyester, or rPET. With the environment and eco-friendliness driving more and more purchasing decisions these days, recycled polyester is more popular than it ever has been. Not only is it created from used plastic bottles destined for the landfill, but it also requires less resources compared to creating new polyester fibers, and of course, produces less CO2 emissions. Now, the only downside here, certain recycled polyesters may be a little bit more heat sensitive, so it's always best to test prior to a full production run. Next up is bonded polyester. Now, bonded polyester is coated to prevent the fraying of the fibers for a durable and smooth finish. Take care and ensure to test any printing on these bonded types of fabrics. The coatings differ from manufacturer to manufacturer and even within different styles from the same brand. They may also be susceptible to dye migration. So just one thing to keep an eye out for with those heavily saturated colors, the maroons, maybe the navies, sometimes even black. Now, you may also see fabrics listed as bonded a little bit more generically, which means the fabric is layered or laminated to another layer, and in some cases, a type of waterproofing. While these may be safer to print on, say if that outside layer is just 100% polyester, it is always best to test to ensure compatibility with whatever print method you are choosing. And lastly, you may have seen the term denier thrown around, typically with polyester. Now, this is essentially just another way of mentioning how thick or wide a specific thread is. You'll almost always see a number present when it's called out, like 400D or 1600D. The bigger the number here, though, the thicker and more durable the thread. Just like this 1680D polyester on the Port Authority BG919 that we decorated. Look how you could see the wide thread and texture of the fabric here. It's strong and durable, perfect for items like bags, outerwear, and accessories. Now, I do want to caution you to be careful with traditional screen printing or high pressure heat transfers on this type of fabric because this texture may show through or affect the opacity of your print. Now, do you think we missed something? Or do you have any common t-shirt terms that you use that we didn't cover here today? Let us know down in the comments section below. We love to keep the conversation going. And as always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe here to the Transfer Express YouTube page to stay up to date on all of the helpful t-shirt printing tips, tricks, inspiration, and education that we're dropping every single week. Until next time though, I'm Dave. Happy pressing.